Hi, loves. I'm excited for this juicy topic. Seducing a man's heart open. So I'm just going to add Aaron. We have added him. And yeah, look at you like where I'm hanging out. This is my local shopping centre. This is pretty cool actually. So I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool greenery. I might actually have to come here more often. Yeah, so I'm just waiting for Aaron to join. I'm sure he'll be. Here he is. I see him. He's coming. How are you all this beautiful Saturday? Yeah, awesome. Hey, Lily. Hey.
Hello.
Oh, we're both out in the lush greenery, except mine is, no, it's real. It's just, I'm at a shopping centre. It's a bit different.
Yeah, I got some nice flowers in the background, ready to roll.
Yeah, cool.
Mm.
Um, so I wanted to jump on because the other day Aaron and I hung out and started really exploring what are we going to bring through in the Art of Loving Men workshop. And one of the things that I really loved that came through was the concept of the conscious seductress and
Mm.
and what that is. And yeah, so I really wanted to jump on and share about that and hear from you, Aaron, because you had some beautiful wording that came through around that I just was like, oh, that's juicy. That's like that's the thing.
Yeah. Well, I think and you mentioned it in the photo you tagged, the piece that comes to me as a conscious seductress is when, for both men and women, it's like when our cup is full and I'm not trying to get something from someone else as though I'm having an intimate encounter, I'm having a friendship encounter, whatever it is, and my cup is full, then the way in which I can relate to them is not from a neediness or an agenda, it's from a fullness within. So the seductress inside has that much more like stamina and willingness and capacity to actually like see the other individual for the love heart-centered being they are, rather than the consciousness of, oh, I can get something from them, whether that getting is a sexual encounter, a business encounter, whatever it is. And it's like that seductress. It's just like, I'm juicy. I'm full of life, and I can see you as another being full of life, and we get to meet at that space that's infinite, that's eternal, that doesn't have an agenda attached to it. And that to me is the juiciness that comes with being that conscious seductress. Hmm.
Yeah, beautiful. So I wanted to share the wording that I because I was sitting there and we were just going through it and I was asking questions and then I was typing. And I was like, oh, this is so good. And I was writing everything down because I was so excited. I was like, oh, this workshop's going to be amazing. Um, I love the magic that's coming through. So I just wanted to share the exact wording that you said at the time, which I thought was really beautiful, which I did put in the post, was um, seducing his heart open, calling forth his soul to bring about the best man that he's capable of being, because her inner man
Hmm.
is behind her inner woman, and they are leading together. And she's not trying to seduce
Hmm.
him by getting something from him. She's seducing him because she is already full. Um,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
yeah, that was just so
Hmm.
beautiful. When I shared that with a couple of people that are coming to the workshop, and they're like, "Oh my god, yes!" I'm really excited to come into that. I was like, "Here's a little sneak peek of what we're going to be doing,
Yeah, for
exploring."
sure. And the analogy that I shared, I like that I think it's a good reference point for people, because I know you speak a lot about kind of that inner marriage, and that can mean a lot to different people, but to really like have an experience, like an embodied connection to that, it's like if you can imagine, a man behind a woman, and the man is kind of there like supporting, he's a foundation, he's the one that's analytical, he's the one that's tends to see the straight lines and the understandings and the comprehensions. And then the woman is the one in front who's kind of like feeling her way through the world, and she feels the emotions, and she feels the chaos, and she feels everything that's moving through, and yet feels that backbone, that strength, that affirmation of the man behind her, that gives her that much more capacity to breathe and to seduce and to connect into the world. I think one of the biggest challenges I found in my own kind of intermarriage is that a lot of my life I've always just led directly from my man, and he's done very well. It's I'm in a masculine body, it makes sense. But to give my woman more breathing capacity to feel, to seduce, to allow her wings to take flight into the earth, like I feel so much more congruency into my own body. And as a result, like I feel the connections I have, whether it's with a lover or with a friend, it's just a celebration of their soul. It's a celebration of who their beingness is, rather than this conditioned mind that's always trying to change someone else to it's like, you don't think the way I do, you need to think the way I do so that my affirmation can be right. It's like, no, that inner marriage doesn't even, it doesn't matter. It's full from within. It's just like I'm overflowing with love. I'm overflowing with ooze of this life force creation moving through me. And as a result, I get to connect with others from that same space. And that's where like I feel life force moving through me.
Yeah,
Hmm.
beautiful. Yeah, I love all of that. Um, I also, yeah, I really felt to touch on something that's been coming up for me the past couple of days. I've been seeing a number of posts. I've been seeing, I went to an event, and the woman there really brought it up. And it's about this concept of really powerful women, strong women who are quite independent, and they want a man to lead, and yeah, and they just don't know how do you get a man to lead. So
Hmm.
um, I've actually been writing a lot about this, and I have some of my own content, and I'll be bringing it through in the workshop as well. But I was looking at the attendee list of all the women that are coming, and like pretty much all of them are dealing with this, whether they're in a relationship and their man is not leading, and they want him to lead more, or whether they are a strong, like really powerful woman, and they're waiting to meet a man that can lead. Um, and I actually was writing today about if you want a man to lead, you have to be willing to be left. So like
Hmm.
this concept of like abandonment and the fear of abandonment that I've really linked to um, that a lot of women leave because they're actually afraid to be abandoned, and they think that if they are the strong leading one, like this concept of, oh, I'm going to be safe if I'm the one that leads. But usually that then can emasculate and push the man away unconsciously, and then they end up abandoned anyway, whether they're abandoning themselves or that man abandons them. So
Hmm.
there's so much to this, so much coming through for me on this right now. But I was like, oh wow. But I thought I'd ask you, like, your opinion on that, like what comes through for you on that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And there was a couple comments of just about speaking louder, so I'll try to speak a little bit louder as well. Um,
Oh, is
but
that
it's
okay?
a
I'll
great
get
question.
closer
I
to
mean,
that.
and most of my relations, like longer loves and relationships I've had, tend to have always been with these very strong, independent, fierce women that I love and appreciate, because in many ways they represent like my association to my relationship with my mother, which often is that relationship that happens with a man and their lovers. Is a lot of dynamics similar to the mother. But what I've realized is that the more I've allowed my own, you could call it dark masculine energy to come through, the more I've allowed myself that space that's like knows directly what I want as I want, is able to penetrate not from a space of unconsciousness, but a space from the heart, then the result is that there's more of a surrendering that happens within the woman. And my feel is that a lot of the women that are in these very strong, independent roles, like their masculine is very alive. They know how to get shit done in the world. And there's this ideology that they want a man to come in to say, hey, I want you to, take me to God. I want you to, fuck me till I don't know my name anymore. All these things that come alive. And in many ways, it's the truth. But what happens is with that woman, is that there's a hesitancy because the masculine inside of her has to have the willingness to let go of control. And that's fucking terrifying for women, especially women that have learned in this conditioned world how to get things done. It's like, well, no, why am I going to let go of control when I've done so well for so long, being really strong in my masculine, having a good business, having good lovers. But at the truth of it, when you really look at it, in many ways, are they willing to let go of control inside of themselves? Are they willing to allow their own inner woman to come through, like whether it's a man or female, but often for the woman that has that overdeveloped masculine sense, there's a complete fear of letting go into the unknown, into the void, into that space that's like unknown, into the mystery. And really, it's inside of that mystery because the mind cannot even encapsulate how to get there. But when a man comes in that even has the capacity to maybe have a little bit more strength, um, like very strong clarity, then in that willingness, she actually can say, wow, I feel like there's a little bit of spaciousness here, and I can take the chance in this relationship to have this man who's come into my life to be a little bit more of my own external masculine so that I can deepen in my own inner union, and then I can feel what it feels like to actually let go of control. And the many, what Amber was just talking about is the media government masculinating women and men and feminizing men. It's like, yes, because so much of this patriarchal world that we've come into means that for women to get things done into life, they've had to take a very masculine role, which means they've had to like really embody their masculine energy and come in and say, you know what, I'm going to go fight for that court battle. I'm going to go, fight to service, to step into like and be a woman in a man's world. But really what I feel more than anything is like in this age of Aquarius, in this new age of relating, the most powerful thing a woman can do is to step into her divine feminine wisdom. And that's not a wisdom that comes from a mind, body, knowledge-based resource. It comes from just intuitive awareness, attunement, that just breathes and lives through life force energy. You could say it, Mother Gaia, you can say whatever it is, but she's being guided by her intuition, and she's not being guided by her intellect. Now that can feel like, oh yeah, Aaron, I'm just gonna be guided by intuition, blah blah blah. But like, intuition's a muscle. It's a muscle just like anything else. So women, if you're listening to this and you feel like there's a spaciousness inside of that, then give yourself permission a day, an hour, a week to say, you know what? I'm going to turn off my logical brain. I'm going to allow myself to start being led by my own intuition so that I can experience what it feels like to be more congruent in my own inner union.
Mm. Yeah, awesome. And
Mm.
I think what I feel like there's a few things here like to be highlighted, and something I literally was writing about this morning is being in that void and holding yourself through it. And this is where the importance of being tuned in with your own like inner masculine and having him hold you instead of like relying on that man to be there. Um, is really key. Like, so what I'm seeing what I've seen happen for me personally is, I may meet a man and he starts leading, and then when he might pull away for whatever reason, and he's just, there's something going on with him, or he's processing his emotions and he's kind of goes a bit distant, and this is really common I see. And then there's this kind of this fear it would come up of abandonment. Oh my God, does he not like me anymore? What's going on?
Mm.
And that's when I'm like going into that needy, I have to know what's going on, instead of actually stepping back and going, okay, I'm going to hold myself through this because I don't actually need him to tell me that I'm safe. I need to keep
Mm.
create my own inner safety and process all the emotions that are coming up, and be with myself and give me that own loving attention that I'm desiring from him. And so that's one of the points I wanted to make that I've seen. And then I've noticed it flip around to me then leading, because I've freaked out that like I'm going to get back, and then later on at some point he ended up leaving because I've emasculated or pushed away, and I was like, oh shit, I just created this. Like, so if any ladies are watching can resonate, let us know, like comment below if you can see that, like how the leading can flip like that. And I think the other point I wanted to share on here was, we were in the car the other day, and I was talking about how I have this kind of innate fear of like fucking things up, of like, oh, like what if I fuck things up? And I played out the pleaser, like what if I fuck things up with a man? Like what if he doesn't like me? Like, and this pleasing energy, which I'm like really like doing a lot of work on at the moment, working through at the moment, and I've done a lot of work, but there's always more, which led to this whole other conversation about self-development. Anyway, I could get carried away here. But um, what I love what you said about that is that you were, and this is going back to the divine feminine wisdom, is you were like, it's impossible for you to fuck it up. Like, it's a complete illusion that you could fuck things up. And I love you to touch more on that, which I think you kind of touched on already, but like, I just love what you said, because when you said that to me, I was like, I just feel like you gave me a massive permission piece to hear that from a man, and a powerful man, about like, you pretty much can't fuck this up. Um, you know, whatever connection is, whether it's business or relationship or romantic, whatever this is, it's like you can't fuck things up. I was just like, it was just like this, oh my God, like this permission piece. And like, that I just hadn't really, I think it was just hearing it from you was like what I needed yeah, I don't like know how to explain it, but it was just like this relief I felt. I was like, oh, I can just be myself. Yeah. Like,
Well,
wow, like, who would thought?
yeah, and I think what you speak of, it's like when the willingness inside is recognized that we actually can't mess any of this thing up, just on a very like core foundational level, we feel no matter what in this body form that we're abandoned by spirit. Like our soul has come into form, and in a sense we feel abandoned by the void in which we came from. So when we recognize that no matter how deep in the work we go, no matter how much we get, there's like an eternal abandonment wound that we feel when we're in this body. So everyone that's going through this, oh, he abandoned me and they abandoned me, just keep going deeper and deeper. And that wound is always going to be there. Like you can heal it to a certain degree, but when you can recognize that the only thing you actually feel abandoned by is that you've come into this body and that you're not going back into the void of eternal cosmos that you've come from. So with that awareness, I find that the actual understanding that there's not an actual human to develop. And this might sound a little bit, esoteric, esoteric essentially, but when we can actually feel that there's all of this self-development work that we do, it's great and it's brilliant and it's incredible because we learn how to navigate this human experience even more effectively. But when we recognize that no matter what interaction we're having, whether it's with a lover, a friend, whoever it may be, at the core of that interaction, every single thing that happens and breathes is for our evolution and growth as a spiritual being having this human experience. So as we're walking through this situation, it's like, wow, yeah, he might trigger me, I might trigger him. And to look at it through the eyes of joy and celebration rather than fuck you, why did you do this to me? And fuck you, I can't believe this happened to me. It shifts it from a space of, wow, I'm really pissed off right now. And you feel all the pissed off, you feel all the emotions, you feel all the things that come with it. But it's less of like a victimized state of being and more of a celebration of soul. A celebration to say, wow, I'm in this human experience and I'm going to have highs and lows and kind and cruel and naughty and nice and good and bad. So the freedom of knowing that, the freedom of being like, hey, I'm not perfect, I'm never going to be perfect, but in that perfect imperfection, I can just celebrate this like joyride of life. And it's I laughed this morning. I was having a conversation with a dear friend of mine who is a best friend of mine from home, and I've recently been doing some more videos that are a little bit more edgy, and he was just like, he really strongly was like, Aaron, I think you've lost it. Like I think you're psychotic. You've gone over the edge. Like, he's like, I love you. I see what you're doing, and I fucking love you for it. And there's just so much sincerity to it. And all I could do in my being, there was a huge celebration of it, like a laugh, because in a way, this entire journey is just a big cosmic joke. Like, so when we're learning, like this workshop, we're teaching about the art of loving men. It's really the art of loving ourselves so that we can get to the core of our being and laugh at ourselves and how crazy and how ridiculous some of the things that we do. But we need to know some of the tools that take us there. So, as we were talking more and more, I was just listening and hearing and just celebrating, not trying to change him, not trying to change me, but just coming to that space of celebration. Because like anything, like the women that you were mentioning before that are in that strong form, it's like we want to convince someone else about our value systems that we're holding true so that we in our righteous self feel better about our own existence, and we can sit more upon our pedestal, sit more upon our state and saying, you know what, yeah, I see the way it is. I see what's going on there. I see the conditions that are there. And it's great. It's beautiful. But all I can do now, I feel like it's like you go so deep into all of this work, and all that really is like a big sense of laughter, love, and appreciation.
Yeah.
So when
Yeah.
this man or this woman comes into your life, it's like, wow, you're showing me a part, an edge of something that I haven't seen within myself. Like, thank you so much for pissing me off, for, fucking me to God, for all the things that you've done, because then I can learn to celebrate my own inner, like, magnificence that much more, my own inner wisdom, my own inner giving out into the world, and I can get out of the victim mentality that I'm suffering in some way.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Love it. Love it. Yeah. Um, I want to jump back to, like, this is also good. Seducing a man's heart open. Um,
Hmm.
which is
Yes,
all,
yes,
this
that's
is
very
all
word.
part of it, right? This is all part of it. Like, it's all part of it. Because I guess when you come from that place, it is, right? So it's that place of fullness again. Um, so I think one of the questions I asked you was how do you do that? What are some of the things that how might you show up? Or some of the exercises we were going to do to explore that in the workshop. I don't want to give too much away because I don't want to give too much of what we're going to be doing. But yeah, I'd love you to share on anything that might spring to
Well,
mind.
I mean, my experience when having a woman come in my life who's, you could say, seduced my heart open, is one of the first things I felt from her is a deep level of presence, a deep level of like feeling inside. Because here's kind of the back and forth is that I feel women often want a man that's emotional, that's connected to his feelings, that's all of this. But then at the same time, when the man becomes too feminine, the woman starts to become resentful because then he's not showing up in his strongness, in his firmness, in his masculinity. So for a woman in seducing a man's heart opening, it's really being consciously attuned to that polarized dynamic that's always happening. If you're in a relationship and your man is always strongly like in his masculine firmship and you're always in that feminine space of like surrendering, and that dynamic works, it's beautiful. But if you're feeling like your career is suffering a little bit, like there's areas in your life where you're not standing stronger, there's areas that you're not like having your own level of presence, then maybe bring up the conversation in your relationship to say, well, it's okay, sweetheart, like speaking to the man, like you can show a bit more of that, of like your vulnerability. And we've talked about that a few times. Like, does that vulnerability, when a man feels that he has permission to be vulnerable and he's not going to get judged by the woman, it's incredible because she's holding the space of presence and it allows him to say, wow, nobody's ever heard me, held space for me, allowed for me to be more open, more alive in this way. Like, thank you. And what happens for the man in that space is that his heart says, oh my fucking God, thank you. Like, there is more like love that I have to give, and one of the biggest journeys that I had with this is that when I first kind of came into more of this, you could say, conscious sexuality, is that I had a partner come into my life who held a strong place of presence and allowed me to go deeper into my femininity that I ever had before. And I tell you, EJ, I was terrified. I mean, for those of you that don't know me, I came from a government military background, like a lot of form, structure, like a lot of homophobia, a lot of fears, a lot of like terrified space of feeling into my own femininity because it was judged within myself. It was judged by others. So to have a woman come into my life initially that said, like, you're allowed to go into that space, into that vulnerability, into the tears, it was like my heart just said, thank you. Like, thank you so much. But then at the same time, like, what can happen for a man, and I see this in some of these other like spiritual communities, like in Ubud in Bali. I love it. I spend usually the winters there. But it happens that there's so many men that are so deeply in their feminine energy, and they forgot that they have a fucking cock and balls. They forgot that they have balls that like seed life, and there's a strong presence inside of them. So for a man to find his femininity, but then to come back into this polarized strength within themselves that knows how to be there, that knows how to be in the strength, what I call it is like awakening your heart-centered warrior. It's that warrior essence that's like, I'm fucking here for you. I know how to be there for you, but I'm soft and sweet and centered inside. And there's so much, like, I feel and doing a lot of this work with men, like just after the workshop with you, I'm leading a 3-day workshop for men here in Byron. And it's like bringing men into that heart-centered warrior space so they can feel their feminine essence. They can feel their strength. So for women, to arouse a man's heart open means it's taking this ebb and flow journey and ride, and it's allowing herself to be vulnerable, it's allowing him to be vulnerable. So every day, every moment that you can, you return to a space of vulnerable, heart-centered love, and a man's heart yearns for it. He yearns to be held. Sometimes he yearns to say, you know what, honey, I got this. Like, you can let go a little bit. And it's the same thing that when a man's heart is yearning for that, it's women, the masculine side of them is yearning for the same thing if they typically are in more of that masculine role in their life.
Yeah.
It's like it's so difficult yet so simple at the same time. And it's like what makes my heart flutter with joy when I bring this work out into the world.
Mm. Yeah. Um, and I love that we're going to be exploring that at the workshop, like, because this is what I get to do in my work when I work with my Tantra clients. And even when I worked as an escort, like, a lot of the time I was just holding space for the men to share and open up and express themselves from a place of non-judgment. And I
Mm,
honestly feel like that's what they were paying for, is to open up. And like,
yeah.
rather than sex, sexual expression, is that it was them opening up their hearts and sharing these vulnerabilities that they've never felt, that they don't feel safe to do so, and even in their own relationship. So, one of the things I'm passionate about is teaching women how to hold that space for men. And again, like, what I'm seeing here is it is the presence of our own inner masculine to allow the vulnerability of our feminine to come through, and being
Mm.
integrated in that, so we can hold that space. So I think that's really, really beautiful what you shared. My battery's the other thing is my battery is really, really low. So I think that's enough for us to kind of share on this. And obviously,
Beautiful.
if you guys want to explore this, like, just not like experientially, I think is important, like the embodiment of it, of actually getting to practice what this feels like in your body, and what it feels like to show up in this way, and the profound shifts and healing that can come from that. Because it's all good and well that we're here like telling you and sharing our vulnerabilities and sharing from our experiences, but I feel like, where the real work is actually showing up and applying it. So that's why I love running workshops, especially being able to co-facilitate this is really beautiful. So if anyone is interested, we have a few spaces left. It's the 19th and 20th of May. It's called The Art of Loving Man. It is a one-off event because Aaron travels everywhere, all over the world, doing this amazing work. So we're very lucky to have you here on the Gold Coast. I feel very blessed that this is all afloat and the magic showing up how it is. So if you guys are interested, just comment below interested, and we can send you some details on that. It's a women's workshop, and we invite men into the space on day 2. So again, you can get the experiential part of it. So do you want to
Yeah,
add anything to
absolutely.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, I just love, I mean, so much of my journey, even before I got into conscious sexuality, was experiential education. I mean, I've been in this field for over 10 years, and it's like everything from consciousness to mind to body. It's like the more experientially applied it can be in a safe container, it's like the lessons that come away from that. It's why I'm just about to go into a week-long program today, another experiential dive. It's like always on that edge of learning and growth and understanding. So if you have any interest, or if you can't make it there for whatever reason, and you have a question, or you want to have a deeper conversation about any of this, leave a comment, write a question. Like, we as a culture, as a society, are opening into an entire new level of way of being right now. And the more vulnerability, the more aliveness, the more love that we allow ourselves to be infiltrated by, to be opened to, whether that's through the mind, whether it's through the genitals, whether it's through the heart, that as a culture, as a society, as human beings walking through this game of life, this journey of life, there's that much more that we can share with other beings. So if there's a piece of this that's calling to you, if you're wanting to dive in deeper, if you've been waiting for a time to do this, like, now is the time. And again, if you can't make it to that individual workshop, like, send us a message. I'm all over the world. I have a strong, I'm in many different countries, so I'd love to hear from you. and get out there. And even if you're doing this work, like the more vulnerable, the more alive, the more I can show like those itty nasty bits of inside of me that I'm terrified of showing, then it just gives permission for everyone else in our life to do the exact same thing. And it's like, so I woke up this morning so feeling so fucking alive and free, like more alive and free than I've ever been in my life. And it's like ecstatic. It's ecstatic bliss that moves through every cell of the body, and I love sharing that with others.
Beautiful. Thanks so much. Yeah, guys, if you can't come to the workshop, obviously Erin and I both do coaching, so you feel free to we're totally open to being messaged. I feel really passionate about this work. It's alive, it brings me alive, and yeah, so much yeah, to express on that. So all right, thank you, beautiful people, for hearing us, and for your presence, and thank you for your presence,
Yes.
Erin. Okay,
Mwah.
hopefully we'll see some of
See
you
you all.
next week. Bye.
Yes. Yeah. See you.